another episode of 1923 Main Street.
Home of everything to do with Disney travel in style. We are your hosts.
I am Mike Bella Braddock.
And I'm Amelia Bella Braddock. And today, the top 10 t-shirt, hoodie, and sweatshirt colors for this coming 2025.
Yes, as we promised last week when we shared what were the most popular colors for 2024, we have crunched some numbers, looked at our own sales and what's trending, looked at industry trends for next year, and we have put together our top 10 list for what promise to be the most popular t-shirt colors, sweatshirts, and hoodies coming up this year in 2025. Now, I want to point out before we go through these 10, they're not in order. Top trending colors doesn't necessarily mean these will be the top selling colors. Some of the staples are always going to sell well, but some of these trendy colors will be popular, but it doesn't mean that you're going to see everybody wearing one of these trendy colors. It's just to say this year you're going to see them more often than not, or colors we haven't seen before very frequently.
Yeah. Well, these types of colors also populate not just t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hoodies. These could be the top paint color, the top home design color, just things that will be more infiltrated into mainstream media and advertising, so you'll see them more than you have in the past.
And that's interesting you say that, because one thing that stood out to me is if you follow these color trending fashionista things, then you will know that Pantone picked Mocha Mousse, which is basically a brown, as the top color, design color for 2025. It is not in our top 10 list. In fact, browns are not at all. However, if you like them, we started producing some ourselves. So we're going to see how those sell this year. But based on our data and the data of others, they did not yet make this list. Maybe they will next year because they're hot this year.
The brown is more, for me, it's more like boots, jackets, purses. It's more the brown leather look that I'm seeing, at least fashion-wise. I think it would be harder to sell like a brown t-shirt, although I have seen brown sweatshirts and hoodies.
Yeah,
but
we
a brown
do.
t-shirt
We have
specifically,
some.
the Mocha Mousse has got to really take off before people start buying that.
Yeah, and our brown is a little bit different. We tend to use the dark chocolate color. So, and only for designs that it works well with. So we put a lot of thought, as we've mentioned in the past, into a particular graphic and what colors are going to work well with that. It's not like we just take every single color and put a graphic on it no matter what. So having said that, let us now go through what you're waiting for, the top 10 colors to watch for t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hoodies this year. Kicking it off. Do you want to go in reverse order? Although they're not really in order, so it doesn't matter. All right. Well, let's start with the number one, which is an obvious anyway.
Classic white.
You know, this is a perennial favorite. It was the original shirt, so no surprise here. It's not going anywhere.
I don't care what piece of clothing you're talking about, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, dresses, jeans, anything. White will always have its moment every single year, depending, whatever the style, the trend, the new aesthetic of the season is. White will always have its moment. Some way, somehow, it will be in there. It is that girl.
And I like it also from a technical perspective when I'm doing the, technical product putting together creations.
Well, yeah, that too.
White is a lot easier to work with for almost every graphic. There are certain graphics that work well at the other end of the spectrum with black, but generally speaking, white is number one for a reason. Everything you just said, and it's easy from a production and printing perspective as well. Now let's get into our first interesting one, which is number two. And Amelia, I didn't give her a lot of pre-coverage to the finalist because I want to get her opinions sort of raw right now. What is the second color?
Coral.
Now let me just say, coral's an interesting blend of red and orange with a little pink. The coral we're talking about here is sort of a muted tone. It's very light. It can also be deep color, but light is the one they're looking at.
Coral worries me a little bit just because it was such a popular color in like the early 2010s fashion, which is a personal pet peeve of mine. I'm scared for the day it's coming back.
This is one I'm not sure we are going to embrace fully.
I'm scared of it.
There are certain designs, I don't know yet, maybe flower and garden, things like that, where it might work because of the earthy style of it. sometimes.
Back in the early 2010s, this color, it was all the rage. It was everywhere. I was personally wearing it. But now I think it just needs to stay in the early 2010s. It doesn't need to come back. Doesn't need to reappear.
Well, it's looking
I'm
like
okay
it's going
with
to
the
be
coral.
trending. And
No.
like I said, we'll try to remember to do a year end to see which ones of these 10 actually did do well this year. So coral's one on Amelia's hit list, clearly.
Yeah, I'm not.
How about number 3?
Olive green is interesting for a different reason because sage green was all the rage just recently. And now I would call it a sister color. They're very similar, olive and sage green.
So olive green in the green family tends to be the sort of warmer tones, maybe slight yellow under it, right? It's not quite army green for sure. It's a little bit lighter. You could almost, when you're designing from the graphics perspective, olive green and coral are almost in the same family in terms of how graphics appear on them.
Don't do olive green like that.
Yeah.
I'm a fan-ish of olive green. I grew to love the sage green. I can get behind the olive green.
Yeah, we tend to look at forest greens a lot, but we'll see how olive green does this year.
I do like the warmer colors generally. Personally, for me, I like the warmer colors over the cooler colors.
And also, some of these things may appear in our all-over prints, in our dresses, in our swimwear, things like that. Not necessarily graphic printed tees, but in our other clothing, casual wear. So watch for those as well. What do you think of number 4?
I love powder blue.
Do you? Number 4 is powder blue.
As I just said, I love warm colors over cool colors.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's one of the lighter blue colors. It's in the range of blue greens. If you're looking at, if you're a designer and the color palette wheel, it's sort of in the blue green area. Tends to be, it's a pale blue. It's lighter, much lighter than navy blue, obviously, which is when, a more dark, almost black blue. Other names you might see for this in our shirts because of the manufacturers are light sky blue or just light blue in that spectrum.
I was all over powder blue in the beginning of lockdown era, all over it.
I'm not sure. I mean, we do have
the amount
some
of clothing I
light
own.
blue, powder blue things.
I have a lot of light blue, powder blue things.
Again, it really, when we're preparing apparel, powder blue does not go with everything the way white does. So we just bear that in mind. You can print, pretty much has to be a dark on powder blue because it's very light. Printing anything white on it, sometimes those work because they look a little faded, but I don't know. We do produce some powder blue. We're not going to produce a ton of it unless you tell us you want to see more because we listen to our shoppers. Number 5, one that you predicted would be here, is here.
You've just said red.
Yes, I just said red. It's really...
I'm going to need more specifics.
Okay.
Red, she comes back every year.
Yeah, so 2024 was the sort of vibrant reds. And
I was going to say.
This year they're saying fiery red. And that is going to be the dominant one. And fiery red, as it's described, is a bold red with a reddish orange tone to it. So... I like the reds. We'll watch this. Again, it only works with certain designs. I sometimes like black printing on red. I think that looks cool. I'm wearing one right now.
I feel like the red,
looking at it.
It's always able to come back, but it shifts slightly. It's not the same red every year, but a version of red always seems to make itself popular just because it is bold, it is eye-catching. There's a lot you can do with it fashion-wise.
Yeah, they tend to be statement type of tops, right? It's not like a white, as you noted earlier.
If you believe in color theory, you're going to enjoy a piece of red.
Now, number 6, I think, is probably the most sort of controversial on this list. I do like playing around with this with certain designs.
No.
I own a couple of things in this design.
No, thank you.
And what are we talking about?
Mustard.
Now, mustard. Number 6, look for that to be trending. When we say mustard, you think of, it's not French's yellow American mustard. The mustard tone of shirts is more like a Dijon, right? It's a deeper type of color, almost brownish tinges in it. It's sort of a love it or hate it color, I think.
I don't hate it.
It is rich and warm in tone, so that's good.
It gives a specific time period. It feels like the 80s, to me at least.
Well, I mean, aren't 80s coming back?
Unfortunately.
We will see if mustard will have its breakout year in 2025 as predicted. Things are pointing in that direction, so I like to watch how the trends play out.
At least it's not the color of physical mustard. That would be worse.
Yeah, it is, but it's more like the Dijon.
But like, it's more organic, homegrown, handmade mustard.
Yeah, it's
than
earthy
like
in a way.
you go to Walmart and you pick up mustard from the shelves.
Correct. Number 7, another one similar to another color on the list.
Lavender.
So lavender is essentially a sort of a pale purple. It's not lilac.
They're similar.
They're similar but different.
They're very close. From a distance, you probably can't tell. Personally, I lean more lavender. It is my room color. I'm always a fan of purple. Anytime anybody wants to bring purple back, I'll be here for it.
Would you wear a lavender t-shirt?
I own several lavender t-shirts.
Okay, well then that answers that question.
It's in the same family to me as powder blue.
Yes, I agree. Same type of idea.
Same, you can pair it with things in that
and
family.
from a graphic design perspective, I would treat those similarly as well.
Yeah.
All right, number 8, a nice neutral beige color. You know, we saw this trend emerging in 2024. We definitely saw this trend emerging in 1923 or Main Street Shop. And so I'm not surprised that it is continuing to trend next year or this year now, I guess.
I'm definitely not surprised. At least on my side of Instagram, it was everywhere. The whites, blacks, and beiges, especially with, the trend of the minimalistic sort of styles. The beige has been at the forefront of a lot of not just clothing shops, but also clothing shops for a long time. So I'm not surprised to see it continuing in 2025.
And if you're shopping at 1923mainstreet.com or any other shops, shirts that are called sand or natural, those are going to be in this range. Those are some of the shirt names that the blank t-shirt companies and hoodie companies use to describe this color. Number 9 is a trend we definitely saw here, and I'll be curious to see if it continues as we expect it's going to be.
Pink.
Yeah, the pinks were super popular.
Kind of a vein of red. I'm excited to see pink making its return.
Similar to other colors we talked about when you said red, the pink is specifically light or pale pinks in particular are what we're going to be watching for. And they sort of fall in the same category as almost a neutral beige for me from a design perspective.
Goodness knows I am not ready for neon pink to make its return quite yet.
No, it is not the neon pinks. It is the very sort of light, when you want not a white, but something just with a little bit more structure or something to it. That's where the beiges or the light pink can come into play.
Like a rosé.
And our final, number 10 on the list, is another one of those longtime perennial classics. And I again, blacks did not make the list, which surprises me.
Because you have to assume that black is going to...
Yeah, but white is on the list, right? So when we're looking at trends and things, I know black t-shirts sell well, but we saw this in our shop as well. Just not a ton of black t-shirts being sold. So I know they do sell, but...
because I already own them all.
So number 10, we didn't even say what it is. Navy blue. So, this is almost a black substitute in some ways.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, it's so dark. Some navy blues are so dark, you have to do a double take to see if it's blue or black. So it's almost fulfilling the black on the list in terms of a very dark, but it gives it a little bit more richness, right?
I was going to say, I don't think it's the same as black. Black it's classic, it's elegant, it's black tie. You can't really touch black. Navy blue gives you more to work with. Personally, I don't like the navy blue, but that's because of uniforms and I'm sick of it.
Yeah, wow.
I've seen myself wear it far too much. But objectively, it's a nice color. And I think another thing with navy blue similar to black is that it works with almost everyone.
Yeah, I agree. And we do a lot of navy blue and black stuff, but people tend to veer to the navies when they're going dark among our shopping clientele anyway. But let us know what you think about these top 10 colors. Share your comments on social media as we post this episode this week. Are there any of these that you think you might buy? Are there any of these you think are going to be epic fails and these lists are way off? Let's find out. I'd love to get your feedback. All right, everyone. Thanks, as always, for listening. Follow along on social media at 1923 Main Street. Visit us at 1923mainstreet.com. We will see you again next week and have a magical day.
Bye-bye.